Interested in learning about wine, but not sure where to start? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Cork and Fizz Guide to Wine podcast. I'm your host, Haley Bowman, and I'm so glad you're here. I'm a wine enthusiast turned wine educator and founder of the Seattle-based wine tasting business, Cork and Fizz. It is my goal to build your confidence in wine by making it approachable and lots of fun. You can expect to learn everything from how to describe your favorite wine to what to pair with dinner tonight, and so much more. Whether you're a casual wine sipper or a total cork dork like myself, this podcast is for you. So grab yourself a glass and let's dive in. Welcome back to the Cork and Fizz Guide to Wine podcast. Today you're in for a special treat. I am feeling especially opinionated, and I will be sharing my take on some 2025 wine trends. Now, I took some of these from articles that were recent, so within the last couple months, so it's like been 2025, and so they're like, these are the trends that are coming up. And then I did take a couple from like things that were written at the end of 2024 that were trying to predict what the wine trends would be. But I thought it would be fun to kind of go into these and figure out, are these things purely trendy, or is it a little unfair calling it a trend? And we're actually hoping it's going to stick around for a little bit. A lot of these are topics that I feel like bring up a lot of feelings when we talk about them. So I was like, why not take this opportunity, share my opinions? Now, again, a lot of this is going to be my opinions. If you do not have the same opinions as me, that's totally fine. We're allowed to feel differently about this stuff. So just keep that in mind. But a lot of this I'm just sharing from my point of view as somebody who is into the wine world, does work in the wine industry somewhat, but isn't somebody who's like in the middle of it, in the thick of it. I don't sell wine by any means, but I am active on social media and also do a lot of wine education. So I have a little bit extra insight, and especially with this podcast, getting to talk to a lot of people who are also in the wine industry. I'm going to take all of that information that I have, plus my own personal opinions, and use that to talk to you about some of these trends. And I did just want to shout out the two places that I gathered these wine trends from. The first one is actually, it was an article on Toast, which I feel like I don't read that often, and I wouldn't think of having a good wine article, but they do. And it was an article they wrote that is the top 15 wine trends, wine stats and trends of 2025, written by Jim McCormick. And then the second one that I used was an article on the New Wine Review, which if you are a wine dork such as myself, go check out the Wine Review. They have so many amazing articles. I'm on their mailing list as well. I love getting their emails. They have a lot of fun stuff. But this is one, theirs was actually one is like what will happen in 2025. And it was written by Jason Wilson. I did also use a little bit of an article from 750, which was, let me get the title of that for you. This article is 5 industry trends to watch in 2025. So again, written in the beginning, like January of 2025. So these are more kind of trying to predict versus the other one. The first one that I mentioned was actually written later and has the idea of like, what are we actually seeing in 2025? So for each of these trends, I'm going to share, let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've got 7 of them. So I'm going to tell you what the trend is, why is it trendy, and then I'm going to share my take on it. So let's dive in. Okay, our first trend for 2025, can you guess it? It is natural and organic wines. This is basically wines that are made with minimal intervention using organic or biodynamic farming methods. So I feel like we can throw biodynamic wine in there as well. Little to no additives, including low amounts of sulfur. This trend seems to group these two together, and then, like I said, along with biodynamic wines, but keep in mind that they are different designations. Like, you can be organic certified, you can be biodynamic certified. Natural really doesn't have a certification to it, so just good to remember that. I've actually done a previous podcast episode about this. I cannot remember what the episode number is, but I'm sure we'll link it in the show notes if you want to go check it out and learn more about natural, organic, and biodynamic wine. Now, why is this trendy? So we're looking at younger generations who are of drinking age, of course. They are far more conscious of both environmental and health impacts of what they eat and drink. So they are drawn to wines on a menu or in a store that prioritize transparency and sustainability. Now, the thing is that other wines could be low intervention, but it's hard to tell just by looking at a label or seeing a wine on a list. So having something labeled as organic or signifying on the bottle that it is natural lets wine buyers know that that is something they can trust with this wine. Now, my take on this, I am a fan. As long as, this is important, we keep in mind some important things. First of all, natural can mean a lot of things, okay? Like, you can honestly, there is nothing that's stopping you from just putting that on your wine label. Like, there is nothing, like, you could just say this is natural wine because it's made with grapes. Those are natural, right? So just keep in mind that, like, that term doesn't necessarily mean what you might think it means. Also, there are some wines that are made organically or nearly organic, but aren't labeled as such because it costs so much money for especially a small winery to become certified organic. I've also talked to many winemakers, and a lot of them feel like spraying copper on their grapes, which is a common practice for wineries that are organic, is just as bad for the soil as it is spraying like a pesticide or like a certified organics, not even a certified organic, but a pesticide that is somewhat safer. Like I said, I don't have personal experiences with myself, but it was just curious to hear winemakers sharing that and saying like, and especially with sulfur or with the copper, you might have to spray 10, 11 times over a single summer. And that's because it washes off with every single bout of rain. So if you're worried about pests, you got to spray that copper all the time, or worried about mold and such. I also think you shouldn't only buy a wine or think you should like a wine because it's organic or natural. Like, that shouldn't be the only thing that you're thinking about when purchasing wine. I think it's important, and I think it's great if you want to choose to only buy wines that are organic and or natural, I should say. But I don't think you should say like, "Oh, it's organic, I'm going to buy it." Like, learn a little bit more about the wine, find out where it's from, because you're still going to find wines that you like and don't like that are organic and natural. Just a quick reminder, if you are not on my mailing list yet, what are you waiting for? I would love for you to join. When you do, you'll get a free shopping guide that has 15 of my favorite wines under $15. Head to corkandfizz.com, scroll down to the bottom, and there'll be a little section where you can join the mailing list. I send out a weekly newsletter filled with wine tips, recommendations, special offers, and so much more. Now, let's get back to the show. Okay, moving on. Also, as I'm saying all this, I feel like this is such a perfect episode to please message me after you listen to this and tell me your thoughts on these trends. I want to hear, do you agree with me? Do you think I'm going crazy? Did I miss something? So feel free, send me a message on Instagram at corkandfizz or email me, haley@corkandfizz.com. I believe if you're listening on Spotify, you can also leave a comment on the podcast or text me. That's an actual number that I will respond to. It is my phone number, not like my personal phone number. I'm sorry, we're not that close yet, but it is me who would respond to you if you text there. But yeah, let me know your take on these trends, because this next one I'm going to share, it might be a little bit of a hot take. I don't know. We'll see. So this next trend is low and no alcohol wines. So what is it? It is exactly what it sounds like. It is wines that are made with either low alcohol or no alcohol at all. I'm also going to loop into this kind of category as drinks made with other substances, including THC, so like weed, soda, and then other adaptogens as well. Not necessarily weed, but other things that are meant to give you a certain feeling. It is trendy because, well, there's a rise in wellness culture, and there's a lot of interest in enjoying a fun or sophisticated beverage, but without the effects of alcohol. I also feel like as of lately, alcohol has been deemed unhealthy in any amount. So before there was a belief that you could have 1 drink a day and that's fine, or 7 drinks a week for women, 14 drinks a week for men, or red wine is good for your heart, or, they share all these things. And then now it's coming out that, the idea is that no alcohol is part of a healthy diet. And this is where we're going to get into my takes on this. I have very mixed feelings about this trend. I will say naturally low alcoholic wines. So wines that are made in cooler regions and where the grapes aren't getting quite as ripe, they have super high acidity. We're in the 10, 11% alcohol. I love that stuff. That is good stuff. You do not need 14% alcohol to have a great wine. I don't love if you're manipulating the wine to try to decrease the alcohol in it, right? If it's not something that is naturally creating a low alcoholic wine, I just don't love the manipulation, which takes me to the non-alcoholic wines, so wines that have none at all, which actually, truth be told, non-alcoholic wines have like 0.5% alcohol. Like they can't remove everything, but it's like such a minimal amount. I mean, you'll find that in like fruit juices and stuff. They don't have to tell you that. Non-alcoholic wines, like again, you're manipulating it so much that, and I feel like part of what makes wine is the alcohol, unfortunately. Like fortunately, unfortunately, I don't know. I think when you remove the alcohol from wine, it does remove flavor and it affects the body of the wine. And so you're just not drinking the same thing. That said, I love me a good mocktail, okay? I definitely do not think you need to have alcohol in your drink. I just kind of think you need alcohol in your wine. I don't know. Like I said, it's kind of a hot take. And I just don't know how I feel about adding in other substances like THC or the other adaptogens. I feel like that kind of defeats the purpose of not having alcohol. I mean, if you look at these things, like one of the things I think about, is like if I'm ever pregnant in the future, like I would want to drink something, but it's not going to be wine, obviously. And then you look at these non-alcoholic options and it's like, wait, that's not safe for pregnant people. That's not safe for pregnant people. And at least to me, that just kind of like defeats the purpose of like having something for wellness that, you've gotten the alcohol out of it because the alcohol is bad for you. But this other stuff is fine, except no, we don't allow pregnant people to drink it. So like, mixed. And truthfully, I do believe wine can be a part of a healthy diet for most people. I totally understand for some people, they cannot have any wine at all. They cannot have any alcohol at all. And that is what's best for them. But I think for a lot of other people, you can have wine as part of a healthy diet. I mean, we interviewed Nikki, who is making wine in Sardinia, and she has her husband's family in Sardinia, and that is a blue zone, and they have wine almost every day, So I'm just not loving the trend that's like demonizing alcohol and making it seem like in order to be healthy, you need to never drink wine. I think everybody has the right to make their own choice. I'm never going to pressure anybody who doesn't want to drink. But I also feel like I can have it as part of my diet for myself and still have a healthy diet, if that makes sense. And if I'm going to drink wine, I'm going to drink wine that has alcohol in it. Like that is my take on it. I really want to hear your take on the low and no alcohol wine as well. Okay, next one. This is far less controversial. So we're just going to go back to the safe road here. Sustainable and eco-friendly packaging. So this is basically like boxed wines, cans, lightweight glass bottles, and using these in replacement of the heavier glass bottles that we use typically in an effort to reduce their environmental footprint. Why is it trendy? Well, there's a growing emphasis on sustainability and waste reduction. Consumers are more likely to support businesses that prioritize eco-friendly practices. Plus, some of these formats are more practical for certain scenarios. Like if you yourself just want to have a glass of wine, you don't want to have to open a full bottle, right? You can just open a can of wine. Or let's say you're having a big party and, you don't want to have to buy a ton of bottles. You can buy a couple of boxes of wine. Now, my take on this, as long as the wine is still crafted with intention, I'm all for it, right? So basically, what I mean by that is that I'm not a fan of like cheap bulk wine in a can or in a box. That's great that they're using those. I guess I like that more than cheap bulk wine in a bottle, right? Like I'm not against the eco-friendly part of it. I'm just against the we're eco-friendly to then sell bad wine, right? Like I still want it to be good wine. So there's a canned wine company. I actually just did a Q&A with the Court Crew with them, Maker Wine. I am a huge fan of them, and they're putting high quality wine from small producers in a can. And it's a small can. It is a 1/3 the size of a bottle of wine. So it is great for like a single serving. It's about a glass and a half. And it's the can, obviously. So way easier to recycle than the bottle. I also just tried a fun wine in an aluminum bottle. This came from Currently, is the name of the wine brand. And they're focused on making wine with a lower carbon footprint. So like I said, I am all for this, just as long as we don't forget that the wine has to be we have to make good wine first. Then let's care about how we're putting it in the bottle or what we're doing. And you can also have the sustainability as part of how you're making the wine as well. There are a lot of choices you can make in the vineyard and in the winery to contribute to that. Okay, this next one is, I love that this is a trend. I'm telling you my take on it before we even get into it. Hey, wine lover, interested in trying new wines, but not sure where to start? Or maybe you've been thinking, I'd love to taste wine live with Haley. I mean, who isn't thinking that? Well, say hello to the Cork Crew, my virtual tasting club where wine meets fun, learning, and the best happy hour you've ever had, all from the comfort of your couch. Every month, we explore a new wine theme together. You'll get expert tips, delicious food pairings, and stories that bring each bottle to life. You can order the feature wines from my partner shop, grab something similar locally, or just sip whatever you've already got. No pressure and no wine purchase required in this club. In 2025, I've made this club even better. You get to choose between 2 tasting dates each month, and everything is recorded so you can catch up anytime. We've also just launched our exclusive Cork Crew app, where you'll find all of your event info, wine recommendations, community connection, all in one place. It is accessible via your phone or your computer. As a member, you'll also get 6 free guest passes so you can invite friends, quarterly wine trivia nights, winemaker Q&As, a private online community, discounts on private tastings, and so much more. And when I say everyone is welcome, I mean everyone. Whether you're brand new to wine or a total cork dork like me, you'll fit right in. Loud or quiet, wine curious or wine obsessed, this space is for you. Join today and get your first 2 months for just $8 a month. I mean, heck, that's like a drink at Starbucks. Use code WINESPECIAL, no spaces, or you can save $80 on the yearly membership. When you sign up for the annual subscription, use code WINESPECIAL-YEAR. Head to thecorkcrew.com. That's thecorkcrew.com to sign up, and I'll see you at our next tasting. Cheers! The next one is regional and lesser known wines. So basically wines from underrepresented regions, lesser known varieties are gaining popularity at restaurants, and diners are becoming more adventurous in their selections. They want to go beyond France, Italy, and California. So why is it trendy? Again, consumers, they're sick of the same old, same old. You know, it's also easier to get wines from smaller regions than it was in the past. Now, I shouldn't say this means it's easy. It's just easier than it was. Wine often comes with intriguing backstories from these regions as well, which is another trend we're going to talk about after this. And consumers are also wanting to explore global food, so it makes sense that they want to explore global wine as well. And so, as I said before I even announced what the trend was, heck yeah, I am totally in favor of this trend. This is what I'm all about. I love the traditional wines. Don't get me wrong. I love a good, French wine. But finding and exploring new wine regions and new just wines in general is so much fun. And I love that folks are feeling confident enough to do this. And I highly encourage you, when next time you're out to eat and you're looking at the wine list, like go for the one that you've never heard of. Like, why not? And speaking of trying new things, the other trend similar to this is hybrid and experimental varieties. So winemakers are experimenting with hybrid grape varieties and innovative techniques in creating wines that go beyond the traditional norms. What do I mean when I say hybrid grape? A hybrid grape is a combination of 2 different species of grape. So most of the wines that we know of today are made with grapes that come from the Vitis vinifera species. And this is a species that originates in Europe. So Vitis vinifera is the species. And then you have different varieties of that species. So, Cabernet Sauvignon, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay. Those are all varieties of the Vitis vinifera species. Now, if you take a vine from the Vitis vinifera and combine it with a vine of a different species, like, say, Vitis labrusca, which is a grape species that is indigenous to the U.S., you end up with a hybrid grape variety. And what happens is these hybrids are often bred to resist disease, adapt to climate changes, and of course, offer a new, distinct flavor profile. It's trendy because, well, it kind of has to be. Good old climate change is happening, and it's forcing winemakers to get creative. And consumers want new and exciting things, so why not create some new wine varieties, make it easier to grow grapes in whatever region you're in, and see what you can do with it. And again, my take on this, just like previously, Heck yes. So let's see what happens. I think, there's definitely a good chance that there are some hybrid grapes that are not very exciting and they don't create very exciting wine. But there are a lot of really fun ones. And this is such a great area to just dive into making wine fun, dive into the experiment. If you want to learn more about hybrid grapes, actually, I feel like we were before the trend. So we actually interviewed Erin, who is a winemaker and the founder of American Wine Project, where she makes wines in Wisconsin, literally 8 miles from where I grew up, and makes wine from hybrid grapes. So if you want to learn more about that, I think it's episode 10 is coming to mind, but don't quote me on that. Go back and look at the show notes. We'll put it in there for you. Okay, last 2 trends and my takes on them. So this next one is wine education and tasting events with a focus on experience and storytelling. I'm sure you'll be very surprised by my take on this by the end, but essentially, what is it? It sounds like what it is, right? Wine education and tasting events are becoming way more popular. Guests want to deepen their wine knowledge in a fun and social setting. Younger generations want to learn more about wine and know more than just what is it supposed to taste like. They're becoming more comfortable saying things like, I'm not familiar with that wine. Tell me more. Or what's the story behind this wine? And they want to know more about the people behind the wine. Who made it? How did they make it? What got them into wine? It's going beyond just tasting what's in the glass. Again, why is this trendy? A few different reasons, but my personal belief is it's partially due to the abundance of choices when it comes to wine and the abundance of choices when it comes to going wine tasting. When you have hundreds of wines to choose from, when you have a bunch of different wineries that you can visit, having one that has a story behind it and one that gives you if a wine has a story behind it, and then if a winery has an experience where you go beyond just pouring a few wines for you to taste, that stands out, right? That it makes you want to give it a try. I also think there's this desire for connection, and it is popping up everywhere. So, folks want to learn the story behind a bottle or enjoy a tasting class because it allows them to connect. It allows them to connect with the person who made the wine, with the person who's selling the wine, and the people who are drinking it with them, right? There's that sense of connection. We basically want to move away from just faceless wine brands, we're not just drinking to drink. We're drinking because we find it interesting and want to learn more about it. Of course, my take on this, obviously, I couldn't agree more. I think wine tasting and experiences, that is the inspiration behind creating Cork and Fizz in the first place. I love wine, but for more reasons than just the taste of wine, right? I created a whole business. I am so passionate about all this, more than just because it tastes good. And I just love the idea of connection and how wine brings people together and how you have this opportunity to continue learning about wine and you can never learn enough about wine. Okay, our last one, which I honestly kind of put as an honorable mention, but we're just going to count it as our 7th trend of the podcast. And this is one that's again, I think this one's a little controversial. So we'll see what you think. So this trend is that demystifying or simplifying or making wine fun, I'm putting that in quotes if you can't tell, making wine fun will finally be overdone. That's the trend. What do you think? Okay, here's what it is. Basically, the idea of making wine simple and easy to understand, or maybe oversimplifying. And this is primarily seen in the influencer space on social media or even in wine books. And why is this a trend? Now, this was a trend that was predicted. So I don't know if we were totally seeing this or if this was just a trend that somebody predicted. I think for some folks, it's getting a bit repetitive, right? The whole let's demystify wine. And you're like, okay, great. Yeah, everybody else has done that. And for folks in the wine industry, I do think that sometimes we have a tendency to simplify wine to a point that it takes away from all the good things about wine, right? It's kind of that idea of if you say, okay, Chardonnay tastes like this. And it's wait, okay, a Chardonnay can taste like that. Chardonnay tastes like lemons and yellow apples and bread. And it's okay, that's an option, but actually, I can actually find a Chardonnay that tastes nothing like that and tastes like something else, right? So it's getting to the point of how do you introduce it without simplifying it to the point where you're not actually really teaching about wine and you're taking away from it, right? Or just serving having on your wine list a white wine or a red wine, right? And white wine is like this, or food pairing is a great example of this. White wine should be paired with fish and red wine should be paired with meat. And it's that's a good place to start, but you are simplifying it. And, there's a lot more that you can get out of that. And so my take on this is that I feel like I see both sides. Wine is complex. It's a combination of farming, chemistry, art, and history. And the wine world is never ending. You can never stop exploring. So I do think we should be cautious about oversimplifying wine. However, on the flip side, due to all of that and how complex wine is, it's overwhelming. And I feel like it can be difficult to dive into as beginners. So I think it's important to meet people where they're at when it comes to teaching and talking about wine. And I do believe there's a way to demystify how we talk about wine while still upholding the adventure and mystery surrounding wine as a whole, right? Like, let's drop the complexity and the technical terms and the way we talk about wine when we're talking, especially to beginners, but let's still bring the mystery to, a place that folks can understand, right? Like, you could do, getting passionate about different elements of winemaking, right? Talk about how, maybe at a winery they have an oaked Chardonnay and an unoaked Chardonnay, and give those a taste side by side and talk about, what does it mean when we put the wine in an oak barrel and what are the different things that could come out of it? And that and introduce them to the idea that you might not just dislike oaked Chardonnay. It might be the ones you had before. Let's talk about this. Where does this come from? Offering other comparative flights, like trying wine at different temperatures. I remember I was at Taste Washington earlier this year and I tried, was it Carignan or Cinsault? It was one of the lesser known red wines, and they had it at a cooler, like a chilled temperature, and then room temperature. And getting to taste those at the different temperatures was so fun. And I feel like that getting to experience that and then maybe doing a little bit of explaining on it allows you to still have that fun mystery and complexity of wine, but make it approachable, right? And you don't need to talk about, sometimes depending on who you're talking to, maybe talking about the different type of soil or the different pH level or the number of bricks that were in, if I'm saying this and you're like, what the hell are you saying? That's probably how a lot of people feel. And that might not be necessary for those that are beginning, versus talking about, okay, the acidity in this and how it balances with the sugar. Think of a glass of lemonade. I don't think that's oversimplifying. I think that's meeting people where they're at and helping them learn. So, like I said, I can see both sides. I get where they're coming from, but I also think we should be careful to not discourage people from learning and, not make it approachable. Okay, that was fun for me. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope I get to hear your thoughts and your take on these trends. And also let me know, what trends did I miss? Is there another trend that you're seeing that you think we should bring up? I'd be happy. I can talk about it over on Instagram. I'm always chatting in my stories. So go send me a message at Cork and Fizz or email me, Haley@corkandfizz.com. Love to hear what you think. And if you like this episode and you're like, I want to hear more of your hot take opinions, please rate this episode, leave a review, let me know, and I will do more of these episodes. In next week's episode, we're talking about high altitude wines. This was actually inspired by a recent wine night with friends. My in-laws recently moved to a high rise in downtown Seattle. And so they had a place where we could, host a little party. And so we invited our friends that are part of the wine club over for high altitude wines in a high rise. It was really fun. And so we tried a lot of really, really good wines. And it got me thinking I'd really like to dive deeper into this topic. So we're going to talk about, high altitude wines coming from the Alps, from the Andes, and more. I'm probably going to feature talking about Colorado wine because I know that's really high altitude. And actually the highest altitude vineyards, I believe, are in China right now. So we will talk about all of that in next week's episode. Thanks again for listening. And if you want to learn more about wine, come follow me at Cork and Fizz on Instagram. And if you're interested in exploring new wines and joining an incredible community of wine lovers, be sure to sign up for my virtual tasting club, The Cork Crew. Head to thecorkcrew.com to learn more and use code WINESPECIAL. That is WINESPECIAL, Wine Special, to get your first 2 months for just $8 a month. Cheers!